Hey there, all. My name is Liz Wright, and I am a professor of psychology at North Assista College in San Antonio, Texas. And today I'm going to be talking about physical development in our 2 to 5 year old children. So this video is part of a series called Invitation to Learning for my child psychology class, where I do short videos at the beginning of every new unit just to kind of preview what topics we're talking about and also give you some personal and professional insight into what's going on with this unit. So up until this point, if we're talking about a hypothetical child, we've gotten our 2-year-old or our child up to age 2, and they are, if they're meeting their milestones on time, if they're not, but if they are meeting their milestones on time, they are by this time walking. They're, able to communicate some interests to us. They're able to communicate some wants, some needs. And so the 2 to 5 year old time, we've got lots of brain development going on. So 0 to 2, we saw a lot of physical development in terms of getting bigger, right? And so we also saw a lot of new skills popping up, like every couple of weeks, every couple of days, there was this new skill popping up. So the new skills popping up will kind of taper off a little bit. But now we're going to see that they're going to be able to get better at the skills that they've already learned, and then they're going to add some new skills in. So a lot of this, as we said, is related to brain development. Their brain is actually, by the end of this period, so by 5, their brain is about 90% of the size that it will be for an adult. So they've done a lot of brain growth. And one of the reasons why it's increased so much is because of the myelination of the neurons that the brain has. So remember, that's that fatty tissue that surrounds the axon that makes the transmission of the message across the axon more quick, but it also helps to make it more fluid. So children at this age are much better at fluid movements than they are with their 0 to 2s. So we'll see these kids walking, running, learning to try to kick a ball, which I will tell you right now, watching as an adult can be absolutely hilarious. Um, and trying to learn the rules of different sports if they're interested in sports. So trying to be able to kick a soccer ball, be able to uh, bounce a basketball, be able to catch, which is something, if you think about it, it involves coordinating a lot of different things like depth perception and understanding speed and understanding um, distance, and just being able to figure out where your hands should go and when you should open and close them. Like, it takes a lot excuse me, of different things for us to be able to do this whole catching thing. So one thing that you'll notice is that a lot of times kids will like kind of hold their arms out like a basket in front of them like this, and then like you'll throw something to them and then they'll try to like make the circle closer to them smaller and then try to catch it like that. But a lot of times what it ends up doing instead is like hitting them in the chest and falling or something like that. um and we just want to encourage them to keep trying, and try not to laugh as they're doing this, because they're trying really hard, right? But just as adults, it's just like, it kind of always makes me think like, wow, how much work, brain, body, coordination goes into this stuff that as adults, we're just like, yeah, you just do that. You brush your teeth, or you catch a ball and throw a ball and things like that. So yeah, they're learning these things, and they will eventually be able to do them. But the steps before can be pretty entertaining. Um, so what else? So we're talking about changes in gross motor skills. So those are our big muscles. Those are for running and jumping and climbing and all that sort of stuff. And then we're also talking about changes in fine motor. So using our small muscles, such as our fingers, or picking things up with our toes, or which always sounded weird to me. And there's lots of strategies that we can do to help our kids learn to do these skills better. But honestly, playing activities with them, and you can Google, strategies to help my 3-year-old with their fine motor skills. And our book has lots of them as well. But even, if we're sitting and reading together, turning the pages of the book involves being able to, grasp the pages of the book and turn it. Just there's lots of different things, even in daily life, that we can ask them to help us with, because a lot of these kids love to be a big helper. So if you say, like, could you be a big helper and help me walk the dog? And that would, get them moving in terms of gross motor skills, but also get them outside, which, research has shown is really beneficial. Um, or on nice days, right? Um, but so yeah, there's lots of different ways that we can integrate home activities and integrate fine motor and gross motor skill play. Um, you know, we can I have this one cabinet, you may as well, that is always like a mess. It's the pots and pans cabinet. So having them stack the pots and pans, so they're learning about shape and size, but they're also learning about using their fingers to do stuff. That's something we can do. um we will see that there's a lot more rough and tumble play with this age group. So they are, playing tag and playing catch me. Oh my gosh, that's like their favorite game. Once they can run, catch me is their favorite game. Um, and so we want to give them space to do these, running and jumping. And some kids enjoy wrestling with each other, or with their parent, or with their caregiver. Some kids enjoy tickling, some kids do not. And that's really something that we want to kind of ask them about, because I've talked to a lot of people recently who say, like, I don't like how tickling feels. I would not appreciate being tickled as a child. Whereas a lot of people who are parents think, like, well, isn't that one of the things that you do with your kids? So it's definitely something we want to check in with them about. Like, do you enjoy being tickled? Because if so, then I will tickle you. But if it makes you feel uncomfortable, or if you just don't want to be tickled, then just let us know. And this is also a good way that we can start talking about the idea of consent too, and consent related to our bodies and our spaces. I've taught my kids that, yeah, we'll tickle, and then if you get to the point where you're done, you can say, like, okay, thank you, I'm done tickling for today. And the person who's tickling you is, they accept that, and they go, okay, cool. The next time you feel like you want to be tickled, let me know. Um, so, and we do want to kind of take a look at kids' behaviors, this rough and tumble play, and decide, is it rough and tumble play, or is it aggressive behavior, punching, kicking, hitting, intention to hurt somebody else? Because the rough and tumble play is normal. There's these guys have so much energy. Oh my gosh, they just literally, like, I remember just telling my son, like, go out. We have a sidewalk in front of our house. Go out and run up and down the sidewalk, and I will time you to see how fast you are. And that's what we did for like half an hour every day, because he just had so much energy. Of course, my kids also have ADHD, so we'll get to that later in another video. But so sometimes they just have so much energy, and if we're asking them to just like stay in the house and not do anything, it can be really hard because they don't have the frontal lobe capacity yet to what we call make good decisions. And so, they may, let's say it's raining outside, they have energy, they may be running around the house, you're getting frustrated. We need to figure out some strategies. So you can Google, indoor activities for, high energy kids. One of my favorite ones is to take a balloon, put some air in it, and then play keep it up. Um, it's not going to knock anything over or break anything. If you do have stuff that might break, then maybe you might put that away. And then see how long you can keep it up for, because it has, gross motor skills. It has, catching. There's all sorts of skills that are going on here. Plus, it's going to use up some of their mental and physical energy. Um, what else? Um, this unit does talk about what are some of the physical challenges for kids, especially relating to, what are the causes of death most likely for our 2 to 5 year olds. The number one is accidents. And one of the biggest types of accidents that these kids might be involved in is automobile accidents. So we want to make sure that they are safe in their car. Um, and you want to read up on car seat safety, because a lot of these kids should still be in a, now maybe front facing, but 3-point harness. I'm sorry, 5-point harness, um, car seat with a high safety rating if you can afford it, because, as I said, accidents are the number one cause of death for these guys, and girls. We want to make sure that our kids are staying hydrated. Dehydration can become a problem, and in some parts of the world, it is the number one cause of death. So we want to make sure that our kids are staying hydrated. And one way that we can do that is not providing kids with drinks aside from water. So not a lot of sugary drinks, things like that. Um, I didn't let my kids have, Capri Suns or juice or anything like that for a while. And just all they drank is water. And my kids will, to this day, still kind of tote around a water bottle around the house and always be drinking water, which I think is great. And so we haven't had a problem with dehydration. But sometimes we do have to remind these little guys, and girls, that yeah, we need to be drinking water, and sweat, especially heat especially, will impact them. um, Other health concerns, we're going to have some vaccinations going on during this time period. I suggest that you stick to the typical vaccination schedule suggested by the CDC. And there is some discussion of um, folks who disagree with vaccinations in this area of the book. And so it would be important to understand the objections that some people have to vaccinations so that we can help them recognize good science, that indicates that there are not long term problems with vaccinations for the general population. Um, Another thing that this one thing that you will want to think about during this time period is, yes, you will have annual well child visits with the doctor. And, if they get sick, to the point where it cannot be dealt with at home, maybe because you think they need antibiotics, then you will have to go in for a sick visit. A lot of doctors' offices are now doing kind of like well rooms and sick rooms. So if you're sick, you go on the side of the building. If you're just here for a well child check or something like that, then you go on the side of the room so that, if you're germy, you're not exposing non-germy kids. But these kids are germy, man. They start going to daycare, or they start going to preschool, they start going to kindergarten, and it's like a germ fest with all these kids. And so, yeah, they will end up, as soon as they start going to a place where there's other children, they will get sick. They'll get colds, they'll get pink eye, they'll get, which is also, conjunctivitis. A lot of kids this age will get ear infections, um, and your pediatrician will have specific recommendations for how to deal with that. Some pediatricians prefer to give the child medication for the pain associated with it, and then let it run its course, whereas other pediatricians will give you antibiotics. It depends on your pediatrician's thoughts on what's causing the ear infection. A lot of times, if we've got nonverbal kids, uh, they will wake us up in the middle of the night screaming bloody murder, and probably will be pulling on their ears, and that shows us that that's probably what's going on. Um, the pressure in the ear and the pain in the ear increases while they're sleeping. They wake up from it, and if they don't have the ability to say my ear hurts, then they're going to be kind of indicating the area that hurts by trying to pull on it, trying to get it to stop hurting. And so that's probably when we want to give them some pain relieving medication for children, and then take them in to see the pediatrician. Um, what else? This chapter talks a lot about sleep. Sleep is so important. If you don't know this as an adult, sleep is what gives us the ability to, think more clearly the next day. It's where memory consolidation happens. It's where new learning is consolidated. It's where growth can occur. And so, I mean, obviously, these guys need a ton of it. So, your average 2-year-old is getting like 10 hours of sleep per night, and it will decrease um, throughout this age group a little bit. So 2-year-olds a lot of times are still taking like one nap during the day, and eventually they will go to no naps, which is a sad day for a parent. But yeah, eventually they'll go to no naps and spending their time sleeping at night. And so our 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, in general, are about 8.5, 9 hours of sleep per night. Um, and sometimes our kids will experience some difficulties with sleep. So, for example, nightmares. Nightmares, we have an idea of what those are. So, bad dreams. We wake up, we can remember them, we can remember what was going on, we feel a certain emotion associated with them. Um, there's something different called sleep terrors or night terrors, same thing. And sleep terrors happen when we don't know exactly, like we can't name what happened. Um, so we can't tell the person, so we can't tell our adult, what woke us up. And many times kids who experience a night terror wake up upset, screaming, crying. They're unable to verbalize what was making them cry, but then also they may go right back to sleep. And then when they wake up in the morning, they have no memory of it. Um, and it's normal for this to happen. If it happens often, then we might want to talk to our pediatrician about it. Um, we can have a lot more nightmares and night terrors if we experience some sort of trauma. And I'm not saying that if your kid has a lot of night terrors that they've experienced trauma that you don't know about. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is if your child has experienced a traumatic event, it is normal for them to experience nightmares and night terrors afterwards. Um, Sometimes our kids might experience insomnia because they have trouble falling asleep. They might have trouble staying asleep. We do see that a lot of children with autism spectrum disorder have trouble with the falling asleep bit. Their sleep onset is extremely delayed, meaning that the amount of time between you put them down to fall asleep and the time they've actually fall asleep can be hours. My youngest, it was like 5 hours for a long time. And it wasn't because he was keyed up before he went to bed, that he was running around before he went to bed, that, he had caffeine or something. No, it was just that his brain just did not tell him, like, okay, it's time for sleep. So he would lay in his bed And if I left the room, he would come and find me. And, a lot of times when kids are transitioning from a crib to a toddler bed, it can be challenging because there's nothing keeping them in the bed. And so maybe we reward them for staying on their bed or things like that. Um, but yeah, there was nothing that would make him fall asleep. Um, so there is some debate within the pediatric community about using sleep aids for children. Um, there has been a lot of discussion, especially within the parenting of children with autism community, about using melatonin as a sleep aid for children. And so that's something that you would want to discuss with your doctor or your developmental behavioral pediatrician if you have one. Um, I will tell you that we did the 5 to 6 hours of delayed sleep onset for about a year and a half with my youngest son. And then at one point, the doctor said, if you want to try melatonin, you can try like the lowest dose of melatonin you can get. They actually make meltable melatonins. And literally, the first night that we tried melatonin, he was asleep within 15 minutes. And my brain was just like, oh my God, like I don't have to sit here for 4 hours to make sure that he's not up and about and he's sleeping. Maybe he'll be in a better mood tomorrow since he's getting more sleep. It was totally for him a life changing thing. So I've talked to some people that say, like, oh, I don't want to give my kid medication in order to help them sleep. And like, in some instances, you know what, it's important. My kid was losing sleep. My kid was acting out because he was so tired. He was having lots of meltdowns because he was so tired. And that helped him just to kind of push a little bit over the edge to fall asleep. So, um, we also sometimes see sleepwalking, what is technically termed somnambulism, in kids. If that becomes an issue, we want to make sure that they are safe and kind of just guide them back to their beds. It might be important to put chain locks on the doors um, high enough that they can't reach if you do have a kid that sleepwalks. Um, and I'm talking about like outside doors. I'm not talking about their door. You can't do that. We can also talk about during this time period, the expectation is that the child will be, learning to use the restroom. Some people call this toilet training. Some people call this potty learning. The idea to some people of training a child seems negative, so they call it learning. What it is we're learning to use the restroom as opposed to a diaper. A couple things about this. One is you cannot force a child to learn to use the toilet. They have to be physiologically body ready to do this. There are certain muscles that are required to work in a specific way. They have to be able to hold their urine for a specific amount of time, and they have to be able to hold that muscle and release that muscle intentionally. If they cannot do that yet, then trying to potty train them is going to make for frustration for you and frustration for them. So it's not going to work. One thing that you might notice is that your child starts to develop a pattern in terms of diapering when they pee, when they poop, and you could try to bring them to the potty when right before they usually, um, you know, wet their diaper and see if that can help. But, I've talked to a lot of parents that say, well, I just sit them on a portable potty in front of the TV until they go to the restroom. And I'm like, well, if they're not physiologically ready for it, then it's just not going to happen. So yeah, we want to be looking for signs that they are interested in it. So that, they I know it sounds funny, but like share with them, like, oh, I feel like I have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to the bathroom. so that I can go sit on the toilet and pee. And so they might come say to you, hey, like, I feel like I have to go to the bathroom. Can we go sit on the toilet and pee? Sure. And if they do urinate in the toilet, and then everybody gets, high fives and clapping, or doing a great job. If they don't, that's okay. We'll try again. It's not a big deal. Um, I will tell you that daytime potty training will happen earlier than nighttime potty training will. Um, there's some kids that will wear a pull-up for nighttime because maybe they're such a hard sleeper that they don't realize that they have to go to the restroom. So for whatever reason, though, nighttime training, it usually is longer than daytime training is. Some kids are easier to potty train than others. Um, some kids, especially siblings, younger siblings, see their older siblings doing the potty thing, and they're like, okay, this is what we do, and they just follow them. Um, and some kids, it takes them a while. One thing we want to keep in mind, and we will talk a little bit more about this in a later unit, is 2 to 5 is really the time period where these little people want to be independent. One of the 2-word phrases that you will hear very often is me do. And so, you'll say to them, okay, let's put on our jacket. And then you go to help them with their jacket, and they'll kind of grab it away from you and say, no, me do. And you're like, okay. And we will talk more about this in the cognitive and social emotional chapters, but it is important for us to allow the children to learn to do the skills on their own. Because if you don't let them work on it and then say, if you want, I can give you some help, you just have to ask. Then eventually they'll start to think that maybe she or he or whoever my caregiver is thinks that I can't do things on my own, and they might start to internalize those thoughts. So letting them, put their own jacket on, letting them open the front door by themselves. Handles are tricky, by the way, just an FYI. Like being able to do this motion and then keep holding it and turning it a certain way, it takes some practice. And it's not something that your child will initially just, one shot done, be able to do. And so if they've decided that they want to open the door, this could be a longer process, and we just need to be patient. Sometimes there's this, but we need to go to school, we're going to be late, things like that. And so we can explain to them, how about you get 2 tries? And because we do need to go to school and we need to be on time, and that's important to me. And so if after 2 tries you don't get it, I'll help you. And then when we come home, then we can practice some more and we can try again tomorrow. Okay. Another thing these guys love to do is push the buttons. If you're going on an elevator, they want to push the buttons. It's a thing. It's a big thing. And so allowing them to do that. So letting them know, like, we are going to the 2nd floor. Can you push the 2? Thank you very much. That's like, can be the highlight of their day. So we do also see, in terms of potty learning, that some children will experience not being able to poop for some reason. It could be due to stress. It could be due to the type of food that they're eating. So a lot of kids end up taking low doses of either laxatives or stool softeners because of this difficulty that they're having. And it might be something that, maybe you take a low dose stool softener for a little while, and then you're able to eliminate, you're able to poop, and then it comes back, and maybe we have to try it again. And that's pretty typical for this age group. I mean, you can talk to your pediatrician about it. They might be able to give you some suggestions of things that are going on that might be influencing it. But it is pretty typical for that age group to at least once or twice have to do stool softeners to help with pooping. What else? Those are most of the things that this unit talks about. We also, one of the things that this unit also talks about is transitional objects. So basically, the kids, their thing, their lovey, their stuffy, their blankie, their something. And it is totally normal for kids to develop a attachment to some sort of object during 0 to 5. Um, my oldest son had a blanket that he had since he was born, and it was on one side it was white and it had blue and orange elephants on it, and the other side it had a blue like the super soft, initially anyway, fleece. And it was just, I mean, we don't put blankets in beds with babies initially, but once they're able to, then we can put blankets in beds with them. But he toted that thing around with him like Linus for the longest time. It went to daycare with him. It got washed every other day because it was gross. Here's what I suggest. If you start to notice that your kid has an attachment to a certain object, if possible, get another one. Get two. Because there will be times where the child cannot find their transition item. And they might not want to go to bed because they don't know where their blanket is, or they don't know where their stuffy is. And they might be worried about their stuffy and where their stuffy is. Like, is it in somewhere dark? Is it scared? Yep. So we might want to get multiple of this object once we realize that it's a thing. I probably should have gotten multiple blankets once I realized that Silas loved his blanket, which he called Blue, by the way. Yeah, it was called Blue. He took Blue everywhere with him, including the morning, or the 4 o'clock in the morning, so the evening, that he went to the emergency room with 104 temperature, and Blue didn't come home. So we spent the week going back to the hospital trying to see if they could find this blanket, and we couldn't. And there was a lot of weeks of drama because Blue was missing. Yep. And even my son's 13 and he will still mention it every once in a while. He'll be like, do you know what happened to Blue? I'm like, I'm pretty sure it got left at the hospital, and then once they cleaned out that room, they put it in the trash. So I did go back to the hospital multiple times and ask them about it. And they said that anything that gets left in the trash goes in the incinerator. Cool. Yes, I looked on eBay and Mercari and trying to find this blanket. No. So if your kid has a transitional object, totally cool. Just know loss of it might create some challenges. So you might want to have a backup, or 2 or 5. Especially if it has to go in the wash. Because I don't know how many times we sat outside of the washing machine waiting for Blue to be done. So, okay. If you have questions about this sort of stuff, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And I will see you next time when we will talk about 2 to 5-year-olds and their cognitive and their language development. Thanks.